GoVideo's claim to fame was making dual-deck VHS VCRs, allowing you to make dubs of your VHS tapes in one machine. But here's something I had no idea they made, a dual-deck VCR for VHS and 8mm, the GoVideo GV8020. There's the normal VHS slot and the little baby 8mm slot next to it. It's just a standard video 8 deck, not high 8, but according to the manual, it has quasi-high 8 playback, which means it can play high 8 tapes, but only at standard video 8 quality. And also, the VHS deck has hi-fi stereo sound. It can play either format or copy your 8mm tapes to VHS. It can also record from the built-in TV tuner or an external video input onto VHS. The 8mm deck is playback only. It was announced in the December 1994 issue of Stereo Review magazine. For camcorder fans, GoVideo's GV8020 combines an 8mm video recorder and a VHS Hi-Fi VCR in one standard size component. It features one-button tape copying, an automatic editing mode for up to 8 scenes, an on-screen display system, an 8-event recording timer, and a remote control, and it had a list price of $999. Although actual retail prices for it were under $800. It was $32.99 at the thrift store, which is the most I've ever spent on a VCR, at least one in unknown condition, but due to its rarity, I couldn't resist. The overall width is about the same as a DVD VHS combo unit, but it's surprisingly deep and is in this nice, thick, sturdy metal cabinet with cooling vents. It's rather dusty on the back, but surprisingly no one ever peeled off this plastic film. So let me try to take that off right now. That's better. And it just has your standard antenna connections, a channel 3 or 4 switch, as well as your standard composite and stereo audio inputs and outputs. GoVideo also had the GV8050, which was identical except for the presence of a multimedia control port on the back. That connected to the serial port of your Windows PC, and with GoVideo's dual-deck director software, turned it into a desktop video editing system. That allowed you to pick out scenes from 8mm tapes and drag and drop them in the order you wanted. However, the finished result would need to be dubbed to VHS. You could not view it on the computer. And there it says video cassette recorder, model number GV-8020, made in Korea for GoVideo. So I don't know who the OEM was, maybe Samsung, unless maybe the FCC ID would reveal that. Yup, I looked up the FCC ID and it lists the manufacturer as Samsung Electronics Company Limited, and it has a date of 1994. And this sticker says dual deck system video cassette recorder and proudly lists the 5 USA patents they had on it. And it was because of those patents that Sony, who was the first to introduce dual deck VHS and 8mm VCRs in Japan, was blocked from selling them here in the US. However, Gold Star did find a way to circumvent GoVideo's patents, albeit with some limitations on functionality. Gold Star introduced the GVR DD1 8mm VHS VCR dubbing deck, and they even coined the term VH8 for the combination of the two formats. And by the way, in a congressional hearing from 1990, I found one reference to GoVideo making a combination VHS beta VCR, but no proof of such a thing ever actually existing. The main playback controls are in the center and are shared between the two decks with a button to switch between them in case you happen to have both formats of tapes inserted. It has additional controls for VHS behind this flip-out door and another plastic film covering that has never been removed. This one may be a little bit more difficult to peel out, but There, I think I got it started. And 2 more doors on this side, one for additional 8mm controls, and the front panel AV input jacks, and another plastic covering that has yet to be peeled off. Actually, 2 of them. There's one piece and another piece here. I did not get the remote control for it, but the front panel controls should be sufficient to operate it, just with the inconvenience of some of them being hidden behind doors. The VCR's display may look like it uses green and red LEDs, but it's actually using a vacuum fluorescent display, and it's behind an amber filter to turn the naturally aqua blue color of the display into green, and to turn the orange color of the secondary indicators into red. And I really like how it includes a level meter for the audio, as well as indicators for the tape speed and whether or not the VHS tape you're playing has hi-fi audio. So let's try playing a VHS tape. It accepts the cassette and begins playing. And we get an indication on the level meter. And it also says this is an SP speed recording, and it does have a hi-fi audio track.
You can charter a boat and go out on the ocean to fish and explore the coast.
Looks fine on the TV.
Or take a BC ferry to the
There's the fast forward and fast reverse.
Mountains.
I think this is double speed play.
Hatcheries in North Vancouver.
Where's this train going?
Nowhere, because I just paused it.
This is a BC Rail Dayliner train heading north up Howe Sound. Traveling by train through the mountains is an exhilarating experience.
So is playing this tape because everything seems to be working fine.
In the 20th century, we have seen more advances in science, technology, and more social changes than we had in the previous 2,000 years. Sunday used to be the Lord's Day, a day of worship and rest from work. Today, our Sundays are crammed with chores and errands. The malls are filled with shoppers and workers. But in particular, the sports craze dominates our Sunday culture, no longer leaving any room for the sacred and the observance of the Sabbath. What has been the effect of not observing and keeping the Sabbath holy?
And when you press the view button on the front panel, you can switch between VHS, tuner, line 1, line 2, and 8mm. Speaking of which, let's try out this 8mm deck. I have a Video 8 tape of Dorothy's Graduation. No clue who that is, but I guess we'll find out. It loads the tape. Let me just try fast forwarding. Definitely sounds like it's fast forwarding. Rewind. Again, it sounds like it's rewinding. And finally play. And I do get an indication on the level meter, so let's see what the video output looks like. Well, it is playing, but that definitely doesn't look right. It's not holding a stable image, and I can see like every other scan line is missing. It's almost like one of the heads is not working. So maybe one of the heads is badly clogged or damaged. I guess I'll need to open it up and investigate. I did try using a head cleaning tape and playing several other video 8 recordings and a high 8 recording that I all know work fine in other equipment, and they all gave the same garbled result. Inside it's quite neatly laid out. You have the power supply, the 8mm mechanism and its associated circuitry, the VHS mechanism and its circuitry, including the TV tuner module. Everything looks to be fine with the VHS mechanism, including the pinch roller, which is still in good condition, but I will clean the heads and tape guides. To clean the heads, I'm going to use these foam swabs. Never use cotton buds to clean video heads. And this tape head cleaner containing Freon. This stuff got banned years ago because it damages the ozone layer, but if you know where to look, you can still find old bottles of it, and a little bit of it like this won't hurt. Back here is the board for the hi-fi stereo audio for the VHS, and wow, look at all those electrolytic capacitors surrounding that chip on this daughter board. I don't know why they needed so many. And unlike the VHS mechanism, which has 4 heads, the 8mm playback deck only has 2 heads. There's one, and there's the other. So it's a 2-head 8mm player. The main chip on the circuit board for the 8mm mechanism was made by Sony, and unfortunately this board is full of these surface mount electrolytic can capacitors, which are prone to leaking, especially from this era in the mid-90s. I don't see any obvious signs of leakage or corrosion, but I can try taking out this board and putting it in my ultrasonic parts cleaner. Just disconnect a couple of ribbon cables and remove a few screws and the board comes right out. If only camcorders from the 90s were that easy to work on. The main chip on the board was made by Sony, but the one right next to it has the Samsung logo on it. And again, I don't see any obvious signs of leakage or corrosion from these capacitors, but according to everybody on the internet, anything that ever goes wrong with old electronics is always due to bad capacitors. So I'll try cleaning the board to remove any residue of electrolyte, and maybe that'll get it to work again. But it's too big to fit in my ultrasonic cleaner. But I can still do it the old-fashioned way with some isopropyl alcohol and an IBM typewriter brush. I let it soak for a few minutes and gave it another scrub, and now I'm going to let it hang here and thoroughly dry. So I'll come back in about 24 hours, but through the magic of videotape, you won't need to wait that long. And in case you're wondering if the VHS mechanism will still work even with the 8mm circuit board completely removed, the answer is yes, it does. So it really is like 2 completely separate VCRs in one unit. One thing you do need the remote control to do is change the recording speed. Without it, it defaults to SLP speed, better known as EP, which is unfortunate not only because that's the slowest speed and has the worst quality, but also because this VCR is one of the few from its era which supports recording in LP speed, the forgotten middle child of VHS speeds. By the 90s, most NTSC VHS VCRs had dropped support for recording at LP speed because most people considered EP speed to be good enough for their purposes, and with the advent of the hi-fi audio track, you no longer got the large degradation of audio quality as you did with recording in linear audio at that slower speed. So I'll give you a few samples of using the Go Video GV8020 to record various video sources onto VHS at SLP speed with hi-fi stereo audio.
It's simply tragic. Your Uncle Gus was a great man.
You always hated Uncle Gus.
That's not true. He was just different. That's all.
Is that why you didn't come to the funeral?
Our timeshare in Bermuda is only for 2 weeks a year. You know that. Oh, my boys, my dear, sweet, wonderful boys. You must be devastated. I certainly am. Beulah! This tea is ice cold.
Humble brag, Robbie.
I have an MLS cup.
Nobody knows what that is. I have a silver medal from the Olympics.
Oh, were they out of gold that day?
Okay, gay athletes, stop fighting.
It's now a day later and I reinstalled the circuit board. I did not expect cleaning it to be a magic fix, and indeed it has not been, because I don't see any improvement. Mechanically, the 8mm mechanism is working perfectly. I don't see or hear any problems with its operation.
Your Handycam was designed to be compact so that you could take it with you wherever you go and easily put it into positions that will give you some very interesting shots. Look at this shot.
This Sony tape gives me the best results of any of them that I have tried. It almost holds a stable image, but obviously it's still having a lot of problems and it's missing half the scan lines, which still makes me think we may have a problem with one of the video heads. Even with my video capture device's time-based corrector trying its hardest, I was not able to get a usable result from it. Nonetheless, I'll give you a few brief samples of what the 8mm playback looks like. Just be warned that if you're sensitive to flashing images, you might want to skip to the next section.
When you press and hold this button, the camcorder temporarily autofocuses until you release the button.
Melissa Callahan.
Celia Milton.
Dorothy Pushkar.
Melissa Stevens.
Even if half of it isn't working properly, I'm glad I got a chance to look at this rare combination 8mm and VHS dual-deck VCR, the GoVideo GV8020 from 1994. And if anybody has any ideas of what might be wrong with the 8mm playback on this VCR and how it could be fixed, please leave a comment or get in touch with me. And by that I mean some other idea than send it to 12-volt vids.
For years, I had idolized him, an aspiring baseball announcer. Even 1,000 miles away, growing up on Long Island, I'd fiddle with that radio dial in the car, trying to pick up KMOX through the crackle and the static. Harry Carey and Jack Buck, a classic duo. Then Bob Hyland hires me to do the Spirits games on KMOX, and he says, you must meet our sports director, Jack Buck. And they take me to the barber shop where Jack is getting his haircut, and I talk alternately to the back of his silver head or to his face in the mirror. And as I recall it, he has only one thing to say to me. How old are you, kid? 22, Mr. Buck. 22, huh? I got ties older than you, kid.